I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is my feature author of the month of September, award-winning and best-selling author, and the author of the book The Prince Was Wrong, no other than Miss Jo Ann Fawcett. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Jo Ann, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. Thank you for having me on your show. I am a native of California, but I've been living in Portland, Oregon for 5 years now. And my day job is I'm a bookkeeper. I'm a self-employed bookkeeper. I've been doing that for over 40 years. I have a grown daughter, 3 pretty much adult grandchildren, and they all live in the area, so that's pretty nice. I have 1 cat. I read a lot myself, and I knit. I walk a lot, and I just stay busy.
Busy indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for being, giving us a masterpiece to the world. So tell us, Miss Joanne, The Prince Was Wrong. What it's all about?
I've been married 7 times. And I don't recommend that for most people. But husband number 7, number 1, he's in prison, was in prison when I met him, was in prison the whole time I was married to him, and he's still there. And we got along really well for the most part. And then many years, we were together like 25 years, married for 20. And as COVID was coming around and I was getting into my 60s, I was thinking about maybe hoping to retire someday. And I started looking finally at the relationship. And I was realizing I wasn't getting everything or much of anything that I really wanted out of the relationship. It all seemed very one-sided. And I started looking at how am I going to be able to retire? And we talked about, I said we needed to start talking about that. And just things kind of started coming up for me. And I started looking at what does Jo Ann need and want as a person, as a woman? And then COVID hit, and that made things worse because we couldn't see each other. And I was living in his big house in the Bay Area in California. And I was just realizing all these things were not what I thought they would be. And many things that I believed about him were not really true. And I moved to Portland to be near family during COVID because I couldn't visit him at the prison because visiting was closed when COVID for at least the first year. And then I really started doing some inner work, and I started doing therapy, and I started realizing, oh, this guy's really a narcissist. Everything has to be his own way. And he grew up as an only child. And so he was naturally spoiled, but he's very smart, and he can be very charming. But everything was like, well, my thought is, here's my idea. And he wasn't really open to other people's ideas or plans for things. And for the most part, for 20 years, I just thought, oh, this guy's really smart. He's got all these great ideas, and I'm just going to go with the flow until it's like, and then I moved during COVID, and we're trying to talk, and I was starting to bring up stuff that, okay, well, this isn't really working for me. And the way he handled it, he was like, it was attack. And so we wrote letters a lot, and it was like a lot of screaming back and forth in letters. And just, what do you mean? A good wife, the good wife should be grateful for this or this or this. And just the way he thought of women in general, and the way, he thought I should be so appreciative that he's provided this home for me to live in. Which was really old and falling apart, and I was putting a ton of money into it. So just his whole outlook on many things were just classic narcissistic behavior. So, and, because he's in prison and he wasn't going to get himself in trouble, he never hit me, but it got very verbally abusive. And as I said, I spent a lot of money taking care of his house and things like that. So, it became a financial burden on me, and I was high in debt by the time we got a divorce. And I'm happy to say I'm finally out of debt because I waited patiently, and his house had to be sold eventually. And I got the money that was owed to me for just, what I put into it. So that had a happy ending, but I needed to learn how to take care of myself and set boundaries. And, what do I need and want to be in a healthy relationship? And for us, that ended in divorce because he didn't want to, deal with any of that. It was basically his way or the highway. And how dare I, put anything out there that made him look bad or disagreed with anything that he thought the way things should be. It's like his mindset was set back in the 1950s and 60s when we grew up. And this is how the little woman at home is supposed to be, and be grateful that her husband's doing all this stuff. And, it just wasn't that way. And I'm not June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver and all that. So, it was very hard to be assertive with him.
Mhm.
And now that I've taken back my life, I'm not aggressive, but I do know how to speak up for myself and stand up for what I believe in and what I think is right and how I think I should be treated.
Miss John, narcissistic abuse is often subtle and psychological. How would you describe the specific feeling of being trapped in this kind of relationship, especially when it might look perfect from the outside?
Yeah, and what's interesting is I think my friends and my family could see that it wasn't so perfect because they could see things that he was probably lying to me about that I just got, oh, no, that's, that's true. That's, he's not lying. It was more like I felt, because he was so good and charming and he was so good at storytelling and making it sound like all his ideas were really good. And if I just did this or this to go along with it or supported him and helped him with his creative projects, everything was going to be fine. Eventually he was going to get out of prison and he had all this money and all these assets and he was going to take care of me. And if I just, went along with believing him. So it was I didn't realize I was trapped until it's like, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years and it doesn't feel good anymore. So, and again, a narcissist can be more than your spouse. It could just be your best friend. It could be somebody at school. It could be your colleague. It could be your parent or your child. It could be anybody in your life. But, they're constantly gaslighting you or making you feel wrong. And it was interesting because most of the time when we were together, because like I wrote my first book when we were still married, and he seemed supportive. And then later, of course, he used it against me like, well, you spent all your money on your book and instead of taking care of my needs, or you focused on your business instead of, and, turned your back on my creative projects. It's like, well, if I didn't work, then we wouldn't have had any money to pay the bills and take care of your house. So it was like when he wasn't getting his way, then everything I had done that was productive or creative just wasn't good and wasn't right. And I was wrong and I was on the wrong path. So.
Miss John, can you explain how the brutal cycle of love bombing, devaluation, or discard works to break down a person's sense of self and create trauma bonds?
Well, it's interesting because he wasn't really, he could be romantic in his own way, but he wasn't overly gushy or mushy or, it was interesting. So it wasn't like he was going out of his way a million times a day saying he loved me, or he did send me nice cards and things like that. And, he would tell me he loved me, but it wasn't all this gushy, which was fine. I don't need it to be overly gushy all the time. But like I would say, why do you like me? Why did you marry me? I think that's a okay question to ask. It's like, well, men don't say why they like their wives. It's like, I'm with you, so you should just know that I do. It's like, well, I want to know why. I keep telling you my list of reasons that I'm in love with you, and it's like, you can't tell me one thing you like about me. And he just thought men don't do that, which is silly because men do and women do. It's like you say nice things to your partner so they know how you're feeling about them. But it's also, unless you're hit, or he wasn't saying a lot of mean things until the last few years. So it's like I didn't know that. I didn't know how bad it was until it was. And that just
Wow.
kept us together. And
Interesting story, Miss Joanne. And how does gaslighting being made to doubt your own perception and sanity specifically prevent someone from leaving and trusting their own judgment?
it's interesting because what was I going to say? Oops. Well, for one example, like when I wrote my first book, I didn't tell him right away because he was supposed to be the really creative writer. And then he was, supportive. Oh, it's a good book. But then later it's like, you because the first book is about the first 6 husbands that were not great. And then he was in a positive light. And then it was about other interests that I got into. So it's like, but he used it against me as if now it's, you're making me look like a loser in this book, and that's bad for my, chances of parole or anything. So everything I did, he just turned it around. And if I wanted to work on something of mine, or it's like, for example, I started a nonprofit and I went to different conferences to talk about some of his interesting military experiences. And I traveled to England several times to do that and around the United States. And then as we're coming down to it, and I'm talking about, well, I've spent all this money and I should get some of it recouped back. Well, you did all those travels because you wanted to. It's like, no, I was going out as your spokesperson. So he just had ways of making, everything I did was wrong when I was trying to explain certain things to him. And it's like,
Hmm. And tell us, beyond the fear of being alone, what are the unique, powerful fears that keep people trapped in relationships with narcissists?
I think a lot of women, especially if their man is, or their spouse is controlling the purse strings, they might be afraid. It's like, well, I can't afford to leave. I don't have any money of my own. So, one of the things I tell people is like, and this is not an original thought. It's like, women, you need to, set aside some money for yourself. You need to be able to get out if you have to. Now, fortunately for me, I was the one working and making money because he's in prison. So, I controlled my own purse strings, and he wasn't necessarily telling me how to spend it. But again, I was spending it on repairs and upkeep of his house. There was no mortgage, but I lived in a very expensive neighborhood. The house wasn't fancy, but it was old, and, the neighborhood, it was a nice neighborhood, but it was a huge house, and it was really old, and it needed all these repairs. And then I was going to see him and to visit him. So that took money and time and stuff. So, it's interesting because I didn't realize some of the things until I got into therapy and started looking at some of the questions, because I wasn't taking care of myself. And the other thing is, I hadn't realized how physically stressed out my body was until, I was going to acupuncture and things like that. And my acupuncturist says, oh, your liver is really unhappy. And, oh, your adrenals are really unhappy. And, see why your legs are retaining fluid? It's because you're stressed. It's like, what? So you're just not thinking of self-care. You're thinking of, how do I take care of this other person all the time? So.
Miss John, what are the first practical steps you recommend for someone who has made the decision to leave, especially concerning safety and logistics?
Well, number one, if there's physical abuse, if you feel like you're in danger, call the law enforcement. I was not in danger with him physically or anything, and I was already not living with him, so that was okay. But get into therapy. It's like, even if you can't afford, years ago, and I wasn't with him, but years ago when I needed to go into therapy, I found an intern. So, that's a lower price, but find a therapist that you can work with. And I found a therapist in my neighborhood who specializes in helping people going through narcissistic abuse. So that's really good. And then just find some simple ways to take care of yourself. If it's just going for a walk or journaling your feelings or what you're going through. It doesn't have to be super expensive, but just start taking care of yourself and start spending some time on yourself and learning what you need to make you happy. Find an inexpensive hobby, just find a friend to go have coffee with, do something so you're not feeling isolated at home all the time.
Miss Jo Ann, as award-winning and best-selling author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I have another book coming out in early 2026. I don't know what's coming out after that, but I'm percolating some new ideas. But the new book is called Wisdom from the Grandmothers, and it's a lot of personal messages based on, focusing on empowerment and aiming at future generations. So that's good. And I'm sliding back from my bookkeeping business. I'm plenty old enough to retire. So I'm going to start retiring and start having more fun. So more knitting, lots of reading.
Yes. Enjoy
Traveling.
life.
That's my plan.
Enjoy life, Miss Jo Ann.
Exactly.
And good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success.
Thank
what
you.
would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be award-winning and best-selling author like you?
Just start writing. Keep writing. Maybe not everything you write you'll like, or maybe not everything you write goes out into publication, but just keep at it and do it. I go to a weekly writing group. So it's just, and get some support around that. But, just keep at it. I never thought I was going to be a writer, and now I love it. So just keep at it. Write about what you know, write about what you like. You don't have to be working on a novel or a big book every time. Just keep writing.
Keep writing, people. Keep writing. If you have the passion to write, and stop procrastinating. And share your talents to the world, just like Miss Jo Ann Fawcett. So, Miss Jo Ann, can you please recommend a book or books that influenced your journey?
That influenced me?
Yes, please.
I really liked, Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed.
Mm-hmm.
Is a fabulous book. And then I'm currently reading a book by Sharon Blackie called If Women Rose Rooted. And it's about, reclaiming your authenticity and connecting to the land, which I'm very passionate about. So I'd say that's my current favorite book.
Thank you for that recommended books, Miss Jo Ann. And tell us, how crucial or critical is finding a supportive community who understand narcissistic abuse is healing process?
Say that again?
How critical is finding a supportive community who understand narcissistic abuse in the healing process?
I think it's very critical, because I have found other women who have been victims, and I'd say we're now friends. But besides your therapist, who's going to be very helpful, you find and you talk with other people who are either experts in helping people, but also just getting the support so that you don't feel that you're alone in this, because you don't have to be alone. There's women there's people all over the world who have suffered from a narcissist in their life. So just talking to people, I've met a lot of men that I meet through dating apps, and, their spouse was a narcissist. So you just talk to people and get the support that you need. And, just know that you're not alone. And there's lots of people that are able to talk to you. And it's like on my website, it's, if people want to email me or whatever, if somebody just wants to a mentor or a peer to talk to, because I'm not a therapist, but I'm happy to talk to people. But there's people like me all over the place that are willing to help people.
Yes. If you need help, people, ask for help.
Exactly.
And what is the one thing you wish you could go back and tell your former self in the deepest part of that relationship?
In that relationship, stop and think about what is true. And, is this relationship, am I being true to myself in this relationship?
Yes. And Miss Jo Ann, after this experience, how does your book help survivors redefine what healthy, authentic love actually looks and feels like?
That'll probably have to be another book too. But at least, with this particular book, it shows the journey. So it's like, how we met and like examples of, if you're not sure that you're in a narcissistic relationship, it's a pretty quick read, but so there's examples of language and behavior. And then it talks about how you navigate out of that and some of the things I did to get help or to help myself and some of the things I'm looking forward to. So, and again, I was writing the whole time and I was journaling. So journaling for me is a really, it's one of my healing tools. So, but if you need some clarity, that's what the book offers. Like, and since then, it's like, I have a list of what my ideal partner needs to have and what I know was missing from this relationship and the others. So I've got that list in my journal. Trust me.
So, Miss Jo Ann, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too, comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in 3rd season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in 4th season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Miss Jo Ann, what does it mean to not just get over a narcissist, but to truly rise from the experience stronger, wiser, and more empowered than before?
I can honestly say that I am joyful and I am happy and I am not stressed, and I've been able to lose weight since I'm not stressed out by this guy. And it's amazing. And whether it's a narcissist or not, it's amazing how much better you can feel in your own body when you take the time to make yourself happy and heal from whatever it is you need to heal from. But especially when you cut out the dead weight from the narcissist. And my therapist said it was the most life-giving choice and action that I've ever done. It's like I gave my life back to myself. And I'm ready to have somebody in my life, but I'm only gonna, I have criteria. But and that's gonna happen. But it's like I've never been happier than putting myself first in a non-selfish way so that I can be healed and so that I can be in a place where I'm receptive to the kind of loving relationship I want.
Miss Jo Ann Fawcett, award-winning and best-selling author, my feature author of the month of September. Can you please invite our listeners to support all your books or your upcoming book?
I'm sorry, say that again. Where can they find me?
Yes, can you please
my website, yes, please do. Jo Ann Fawcett, just my name.com. My books are on there. You can sign up for my email list. I have a weekly newsletter, so I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Jo Ann Fawcett, because if you support her, for sure, more and more award-winning piece, more and more best-selling piece for sure. And thank you so much for your time, Miss Jo Ann.
Thank you so much for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.